we printed out the scripts. But there were more that I didn't know we had. They read with me, so we can.
Okay, welcome to Seminar 6. Today we're going to look at specific Ericksonian language patterns, and we're going to just look at the pain management script that we looked at last time, and we're just going to go through it and we'll take a look at the patterns that are involved in that. The repetition, the kind of language that's used, the pacing, and then after we're comfortable with that analysis, we'll break up into groups, and I'll just have one half of you read it to the other half, so you can both get practice in that, and then we'll switch. Okay? That way you'll get an idea of how this process works using an actual script that we know works because it's been used by many, many hypnotherapists all over the world in order to get the results that we would like to get. The course materials are, of course, available online. And just so that everyone is familiar with what, with this, I mean, basically you should just be able to type in narrowgatealliance.org and it should just come right up. If it doesn't, then I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Somewhere it's getting lost, the request is getting lost. So if you have that trouble, let me know. I'll get your email address and I'll send you the actual address that you can type in. Okay? And that will take you right directly to the Network Solutions server, which is hosting the website itself. All right? So just to do that, so it's out there. Remember, just put it over the servers. NK seminars over here. Go down to Analytical Hypnosis, and here will be the files. And you can just scroll down. They're all in order, the order that we've seen them. Today's PowerPoint presentation is at the bottom. And if you right-click on it and then just say save link as, it will bring up a dialog box to download it. Or you can just double-click on it. It'll open it up in a new tab. And since it's a PDF file, it will have it over here. This drop-down menu right here has a place to save it. So you can just click on that and it will bring up the dialog box where to save it on your computer and then just download it there. All right? Any questions about that? Okay. And then the same thing applies to the audio files. The audio files are here, NKA seminars, and then audio files. And you can do exactly the same thing over here. You can just right-click on them, and then just save link as, and it will bring up the dialog box, and then just save it to your computer. These are between 5 and 50 megabytes file, depending upon the length. So the longer ones will take 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes max, even with the slow speed connection, because they're not that big. All right? Any questions about that? Okay. And then Amazon still has copies of the Neo-Ericksonian, the Hypnotherapy Scripts book. Okay, so you can still get this, and it's not that expensive, and so I would highly recommend going out and doing that and just practicing with these. Okay, Now, is there any discussion or questions about what we've covered so far? I don't want to spend more time than we need on reviewing. Basically, where we are right now with our theoretical understanding is that there are two separate substances, the thinking substance that we are, and then this avatar-like entity through which we interface with the extended universe out there. And it is possible using hypnosis and meditation and other kinds of contemplative techniques to separate the two substances completely. In fact, to the point where they are, where they're completely separated. And so that is the fundamental structure that allows hypnosis to work. When we are in a hypnotic state, the thinking substance that we are is now dissociated from the avatar, and the avatar is free now to listen to the instructions and to act on those instructions as it wishes. So basically, when you are being the hypnotist and you are hypnotizing somebody else, you are asking them through the instructions to sort of drift away and hang out in the the quantum realm where they happen, where the spirit lives, to hang out over there while you talk to the avatar directly. Now, the old terminology, that would be talking to the unconscious mind. Okay? And Freud, on the very first page of The Hidden Ego, talks about how ridiculous this idea of an unconscious mind is. He says, I know that everyone out there with any philosophical training is going to just be jumping up and down right now saying, that's absurd. There cannot be an unconscious conscious. Okay? It cannot be an unconscious consciousness. So what are you talking about? And he said, I agree with you that the terms seem to be contradictory, but the experience we have through hypnosis, hysteria, and other, kinds of experience that we have indicate that it is a real entity, that it's a real thing. In our terminology, it is the avatar that we're talking about. It has its own consciousness, its own thinking processes, its own way of doing things, its own being. And so for us, it is the avatar, which is completely separate from us. For Freud and the analysts and everybody else out there, it is the unconscious mind. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes?
I think I'm hung up on the unconscious.
Okay.
I'm thinking about somebody getting hit on the head and being unconscious.
Yes.
Not knowing what's going on.
That's it, and that's exactly it. And that's a definition of unconsciousness. You, the thinking substance that you are, has been forcibly disconnected from the avatar. Okay? And so that's why you have no memory of it, you have no experience of it whatsoever. Same thing happens in delta wave sleep. In slow wave sleep, you have no awareness of anything that's going on here. That's unconsciousness. From our perspective, okay, from the perspective of the thinking substance, which we are, because we're out there disconnected basically from the avatar and have no access to sensory data. Now, the avatar itself is still aware of everything that's going on out in the extended world. And it can respond to inputs. It can respond to, verbal commands and things like that, even if it's in delta sleep. So its consciousness is still there. Does that make sense? Yeah, so for us, yeah, we're simply aware of no sensory input, and for us that is unconscious. So yeah, that's exactly it. And so when we hypnotize another person, or when we are hypnotized, what we are doing is voluntarily creating that gap, so that we are no longer directly involved with the avatar's processing. Because when we're here, when we're engaged and we're fully identified with the avatar itself, we're telling it what to do, and it's responding to our requests. And that is what leads to psychosomatic kinds of illnesses, because we're asking it to do a lot. We're driving it sometimes beyond its capacity. We're literally, like driving it faster than it can go. And so that creates stress, and that's what leads to a lot of these psychosomatic illnesses. So when we're not there, it is now free to pursue its own goals using its own intelligence, which is way smarter than we are as far as it is concerned. And it can restabilize things, it can rebalance things, it can change endocrine balances, it can change muscle tone, it can slow the heart rate, it can do all of those things that it needs to do if we're not there constantly demanding that it do things. So just by separating it out and us drifting around out here, it gives it an opportunity to relax and repair and you know, slow down. Yeah.
I've been using it to get to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and I can sleep wonderfully well. I mean, like for 10 or 11 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and the next day I'm just dragging.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that fit in, and how do I get that to go away?
Well, that's a fairly complex question. The energy levels that the avatar has are determined on a physiological level from the food we eat, the amount of exercise we're getting, the amount of oxygen we're breathing, you know, those kinds of things. But there's also a psychological component. There's also just a psychological component to it. If we, the thinking substance that we are, is intent upon feeling lethargic or depressed or anxious or whatever, we can actually, the avatar creates those conditions neurobiologically. Okay? So we have to sort of approach that systematically. We have to first build in a good exercise routine, a good diet, as good as we can, good breathing exercises and things like that, so that we know that the avatar actually has the physiological substrate to have the energy that we need, and then we have to work on the mental side of it. And we have to recognize if we are causing that. Now, in classical meditation, this is one of the things that the Buddha wanted us to pay attention to, was the sort of the state, the emotional state of the consciousness that we are. Is it depressed? Is it excited? Is it happy? Is it lethargic? Is it, all of these things? Because that will have a direct impact on the way that the avatar itself functions. So once we are able to separate out the two and recognize what's going on here with us, Descartes Aristotle, everybody, up to Descartes, called these the passions of the soul. Okay, and we impose the passions of the soul onto the avatar, and it literally will create the neurochemical substrate that permits the avatar to have that same feeling that we're having. Okay, so you have to sort of take a balanced approach. If you are feeling that way after sleeping a long time, it's probably because you're now out of your normal cycle.
Oh, yeah, that could be true.
Okay, because if we sleep longer than 8 or 9 hours, what happens is we're now off of the normal circadian rhythm of the day. So there are two sets of rhythms that we need to be aware of with respect to energy and awareness and attention and the ability to concentrate and focus. The first is the 24-hour circadian rhythm. Okay, because that is set by the movement of the Earth around the sun, and it's something that the organism, the avatar, has evolved into. So that's the first level. But then beneath that is what's called an ultradian rhythm. And this is a rhythm that seems to occur, it has a cycle of about 90 minutes. And so within the larger circadian rhythm, there's an ultradian rhythm cycle. Every 90 minutes or so, we have to enter an alpha state. Okay? And you'll notice this most frequently, like when we were working, if we're out doing a normal day's work, right after lunch. Okay? Because now we're entering into about the 4th ultradian rhythm cycle of the day, and we've ignored it the earlier part of the day, and now we're actually physically tired as well as entering the ultradian cycle, and that's when we just lose it. We're just for about 20 minutes. And then everything comes back and we're normal again. So this ultradian rhythm cycle is about 90 minutes at a time, and at the end of that ultradian cycle is about a 20-minute cycle of alpha rhythms. And the body will impose that. If we ignore it for too long, it will actually impose it. Like in the afternoon, by just literally taking all the energy away and forcing us to sit there at our desk and be a zombie. Okay, so this is the second thing you have to keep aware of.
So you do that even when you're asleep? You still go through that?
Yeah, there's ultradian rhythms in the sleep as well.
Okay.
Yeah, when we're awake though, these are the ultradian rhythm cycles that we have to enter an alpha state for about 10 or 20 minutes every 90 minutes or so.
Huh.
And Erickson was the first one to, Milton H. Erickson was the first one to recognize this, not because he was thinking about ultradian rhythms, because they really hadn't been researched at that point, but because he saw so many people in his office, and they would be there for about 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just, and then he could hypnotize them very easily because they were already in an alpha state. Okay, so he called this utilization of the natural rhythms. And so he would basically just have them come in and just have them sit down, and he would talk to them about tomato plants or whatever he wanted to talk to them about. And he's not really thinking about anything except watching them, and sooner or later, that ultradian rhythm cycle is going to kick in. At that point is where he knows he can now lead them deeper and now begin to, to use the language patterns that will begin to speak to the avatar and help it do whatever it is that needs to be done. Okay, so that's one of the things you have to keep in mind.
Okay.
The other thing is the larger circadian rhythm cycle. If we sleep longer than 9 hours, we've now altered the circadian rhythm for the next day.
So I should set my alarm for 9 hours, probably.
Yeah, basically, they're probably between 7 and 8 hours seems to be what we need. Now, there's a study that's still ongoing, and this was a big, major data collection cycle of about, I can't remember the total time span, about 30 years. They collected all of this data from all over the world, basically. They were just building this big database of data points. And then about 10 years ago, they started to collate it. And one of the things they noticed when they did an analysis of variance, which is a statistical method for taking a look at all these data points and seeing where they sort of correspond. One of the things they noticed was that there was a relationship, according to the statistics, according to the analysis of variance, there was a relationship between number of hours of sleep and lifespan. People who slept 7 hours lived longer than people who slept 8. Okay, now this, again, they weren't looking for this. The analysis of variance program just kicked it out because it was programmed to kick out things that appeared to be correlated. So they're going back to the data, trying to figure out if there's a causal relationship here and not just a statistical anomaly. But from our own experience, we know that if we sleep 7 hours soundly, we feel pretty good. If we sleep 8, we're okay. If we sleep 6, we're okay. If we sleep 4, we're going to get sleepy the next day. If we sleep 12, we're going to have no energy. So, pardon me?
What'd you say?
If we sleep like 12 hours, then the next day we're sort of lethargic. We don't really have a lot of energy. Unless we, just really need the sleep to catch up on it. And even then, we're still not totally normal. Yeah?
On this 90-20,
Mm-hmm.
is that all of us, or?
Yes. That's all of us. That's animals have their own ultradian rhythms. Yeah. In fact, there's ultradian rhythms for a number of different things. And once they began to analyze the rhythmic nature of our behaviors, they began to see all of these ultradian rhythms that are out there. Okay? This one happens to be one of the major ultradian rhythms that controls the actual metabolism. And so about every 90 minutes or so, it varies from person to person and depending on what we're doing. But roughly about every 90 minutes or so, the nervous system needs to drop into alpha for 10 to 20 minutes. Now, if it can't, like I said, you can override it, and we most normally do during the morning. But that afternoon, it enforces it because it needs it. And so, one of the offshoots of hypnosis was a program called autogenic training that came out of Germany. A medical doctor named Schultz was a practitioner of hypnosis, and he began to just hypnotize a lot of his patients. And then he trained them in this hypnotic technique. And it's a straightforward hypnotic technique. And basically what he discovered was that if twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, his clients would just enter into this very, relaxed, comfortable state, what we would call an alpha state now, for 20 minutes twice a day, their health improved, both their mental health and their physical health. And so now we know that part of it is due just to the ultradian rhythm being met, because the body needs it, the avatar needs that. So if you observe your own behaviors and find those 2 times during the day when you seem to be have the least amount of energy, and take that time out to just relax and hypnotize yourself, that will be, that will then coincide with those ultradian rhythm cycles, and that will sort of energize everything. That will sort of amplify the effect.
Would meditation do the same thing?
Yes, exactly the same thing. Yeah, in fact, the simplest thing is just to close your eyes and just do nothing. Just close your eyes. That's the simplest thing to do. Dr. Benson, Herbert Benson, in the relaxation response, discovered that. You don't really have to do anything, just close your eyes. Because the minute you close your eyes, the alpha rhythm asserts itself because of the 3 or 4 oscillators in the brain itself. Everything synchronizes to that alpha rhythm, and then voila, there you are. So all you got to do is close your eyes, and that's the simplest thing. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to breathe, you don't have to do anything except close your eyes. And that'll produce the trance state.
Is that called a power nap?
Yeah, power nap, exactly.
So, why do other people like me, mine is all an hour, mine's not 15 or 20 minute power nap. If I do that, I'm, out for an hour.
Okay, that's fine.
It's okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, remember, these are statistical norms.
Oh, okay.
Okay, when we started to investigate all this stuff way back, we discovered that the only method we could use to come up with patterns were statistical methods, because everyone was individually different. So we began to develop statistical methods in order to accommodate this huge amount of individual data points that would appear to have no relationship whatsoever and no patterns. So we developed the statistical methods to begin to take a look at nature and at human behavior. And those are statistical methods. So these are the statistical norms that, if you average everybody together, this is what you get. But everyone is individual. Everyone has their own way of doing things. So you have to keep that in mind as well. These are just sort of guidelines about the general structure and the general behaviors of human beings. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so that's where we are now at the beginning of this seminar. We sort of understand how this can happen because of the 2 substances, and now we're looking for actual experience in how to produce this in others and ourselves, and how to respond to this when other people are helping us enter this particular state. Okay, it is a skill set. It is a skill, like athletic activities, any skill set we do. So it's going to take time to learn, and it's going to take practice, and specifically, it's going to take structured practice in order to learn how to do it. So just relax, take your time, practice it when you can, learn it step by step by step, just like we learned everything else that we learned. Okay? And there will be times when it appears not to work. That's fine. You'll have to do something else then. These methods will not work all the time, especially if we're in a lot of pain. In order to overcome a lot of pain, you have to have a lot of practice in this. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work. Erickson, when he was 17, got polio. And they thought he was going to die. The doctor came out, diagnosed it. He was paralyzed, flat on his back in his bedroom. And the doctor just basically said right there in front of Erickson to his mother, he's dead. He's going to be gone before the morning. Okay? So Erickson said, well, all right, what I'll do is I'll just, the only thing I can see, because I can't read my head or anything, is my window out there. So I'll just focus on the window and wait to die, basically is what happened. Well, in the process of concentrating on the window, he managed to induce an altered state, and he survived the night. And then he began to notice that if he was in that altered state, he could actually begin to feel things going on inside of his paralyzed body. So within the space of about, I can't remember the time frame, but less than a year, he was back up and walking and normal. So this was his introduction to, altered states and hypnosis. And so he was, trained by his polio, basically, to be the master hypnotherapist that he became. However, he got it again later on when he was like 50. It came back, it paralyzed him again. He never did fully recover from that. He always had to walk with a cane. Toward the end of his life, he was in a wheelchair, and there was constant pain no matter what. So, there were times when he, wake up out of a sound sleep in so much pain that he couldn't even think straight. And his wife would have to talk him through the hypnotic process and get him to relax and get him to focus and then go back to sleep. And sometimes that would take an hour or two because the pain was so bad. Okay, so, these are additional techniques that we have available to us. We need to practice them constantly. The time to practice them is, not ideally when you're in so much pain you can't think straight. Ideally, it's when we're, normal and can think straight and can practice this stuff. Then it will be there when we need it most. Okay? Any other questions? All right. So basically, we're just going to take a look at the pain management script, and we're going to analyze the patterns that are there. So the best way to probably do this is to go ahead and download this and then print it, and then have it there as a physical script that you can make notes of over here in the comment section. And as you work with it, you'll be able to understand how it works. Now notice that the first instruction, the first thing that is spoken is with your eyes closed. Okay? So this is an embedded command. He's not saying close your eyes. Remember that the old model, the one coming up, from Charcot and Bernheim, was the old authoritarian one. Sleep, 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 sleep. Close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. Very authoritarian, very loud, very invasive, and very ineffective for 80% of the population. Okay, so they assumed from that data that 80% of the population was not hypnotizable. That was their conclusion. However, as we move forward in time up to Erickson, we discovered that everybody basically is hypnotizable. It's just that 80% will not respond to those authoritarian kinds of instructions. Yeah?
With your eyes closed, how are you going to be able to read the script?
You won't. Yeah, you won't be able to read it.
Okay, now if we learn the script, we can close our eyes and go through it mentally ourselves.
Well, actually, you wouldn't. Remember what this script is specifically designed to train you to not have to rely on the script.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Here we go. So you can close your eyes just for a moment and feel that comfortable feeling, that change in sensation. Okay? So in other words, the instructions that are given to the avatar are, in the future, when you feel the pain, stop, close your eyes, feel the sensations of relaxation somewhere, and drift off again and let the pain go away. So you won't need to run through the script. Okay? Does that answer your question? Because you're right. If your eyes are closed, you won't be able to even think the script. These are the instructions from the hypnotist to the person who is in pain, who wants to learn this technique. So this is not only a pain management script, it's also a self-hypnosis script that provides the link here in this part of the script, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Okay? So you don't have to do all the things that you're learning here. All you have to do is think about the sense. Close your eyes, think about the sensations. Bingo, the pain will go away. Because that's the instructions to the avatar. Okay? Did that answer your question? Does that make sense? Okay. So, this instruction, with your eyes closed, it's not a command to close your eyes, but it is sort of an invitation to close your eyes. And so with your eyes closed, so you'll be actually saying this to the person, and they may close their eyes immediately, they may not. That doesn't matter, okay? Ultimately, of course, what we want is for them to close their eyes because that will initiate the alpha state. That's why that's important. And it will make it easier for them to relax and easier for them to visualize, okay? As you begin to relax. Now, they may be tense, but this instruction invites them to relax and to close their eyes again because of the as, because of that particular conjunction. With your eyes closed as you begin to relax. And begin to relax is an embedded command. And you may even want to emphasize that. Isolate those three words out from the rest of the phrase. So with your eyes closed as you begin to relax. And just a pause between as you and begin to relax will isolate that out. The avatar is very, very, very smart. And it picks up on all this stuff. Okay? It can process information that is only 1/3000th of a second long. Basically 3 milliseconds. Okay? It is fast. It is quick. It knows what it's doing. It processes this data all the time. And these particular phrases have been tested. And they've been put together so that it allows the avatar in its own way to begin to process this thing. And since we're all basically, well, English speakers, all would process this stuff the same way. It works the same way for any language, though. If we translated this into French, it would be basically the same, and it would have the same effect to a speaker of French. Because the avatar processes this stuff very rapidly. And so it knows about all these things. It recognizes all of that. Okay? If anyone has studied the actual construction of computers, there is the central processing chip, or chips. We'll assume this is a single processing unit. This one is. Okay? And then you have all these peripheral units out here. You have the screen, and you have this, the drive that has all the data on it. You could have a printer out there. You could have additional drives, all of those things. And what they found out at the very beginning, way back in the 1950s, was that the processor was handling things back then in about microseconds. And the communication to the peripheral devices was taking a lot longer. So there would be an instruction. The central processor was processing that instruction, and then it would stop while it was waiting for all of these peripheral units to do their thing. And then they would send back the signal that they were done, and they would move to the next command, the next instruction, and stop. And so it was spending about 99.999% of its time doing nothing, waiting for all these peripheral units out there. In fact, at today's speeds, even at today's speeds, with all the multiprocessing and everything else, the central processor is spending most of its time doing nothing. On the old model, it was like it would issue the command, the instruction to the peripheral units, and then it would wait about 390 days. And then the instruction would be, the return signal would come back saying, we're done. move on to the next instruction. Then it would move to the next instruction and then wait another 390 days in computer time. So that's what's going on here. Consciousness is like operating at peripheral speed, and the avatar is operating at central processing speed. So it handles all of this data really well, and all of these instructions are taking advantage of that fact. All right? The avatar, I mean, it thinks very rapidly. It thinks in language. It knows what's going on here. Okay, you probably notice. Again, no command, like notice this. It's you probably notice. So again, it allows this free sort of, let the avatar process this at its own speed, at its own rate, in its own way. You probably notice that the first thing you notice. Now that is a command, that is an instruction. The first thing you notice is how difficult it is. So now we're talking difficulty. To not become aware. Now a negative, this is a negative command, not become aware of that pain or discomfort. That's an embedded command. Not become aware of the pain. And it's difficult not to become aware of the pain. Okay, so we've got several negatives embedded in these three sentences. And it will process them. And so immediately the pain management begins. And we've already set the stage now for not feeling the pain. Already. Notice how much stuff is now embedded in these commands. How many things the avatar has now processed already, without us hardly doing anything at all. We've already initiated the trance state with the eyes closed. We've already initiated a command to relax. We've already talked about noticing certain things, in this case, the pain or discomfort. And we've also said, don't become aware of that pain or discomfort. So we've invited it to become aware of it and then not to become aware of it, and then to have the pain drop away. So it's processing all of this stuff as we're talking. And these are the commands that it will activate, and it will lead into that state of relaxed, pain-free trance. Okay? And that's fine. Erickson used to throw that out all the time. Because whatever's going on is fine. Whatever you are doing is fine. That's good. Keep it up. Do whatever you're doing. Okay? We don't know what it is. I mean, the hypnotist really doesn't know exactly how that particular person is processing this information, but it doesn't really matter. Because we're going to embed these commands again and again and again and again, following the simple rule. If at first you don't get what you want, do it again. No such thing as failure. Okay? There's no failure here. Failure is not an option. If what you're doing isn't working, try something else. And we're going to try lots of things. Lots and lots and lots of things. Always with the same general idea behind it. Always with the same general kinds of commands embedded within it, so that the avatar gets the message and can act on these instructions multiple times if it wants, or sooner or later will decide to act upon them. Okay? Now, again, the continuation of this idea about not becoming aware of the pain. You don't need to fight your mind, which is always aware of those sensations. Notice the next phrase, for you. In other words, the avatar is always aware of those sensations, protecting you. That's why those sensations are there. They're telling you that something needs attention. Something's wrong. That's why the pain is there in general. Okay, so now Erickson is saying, this is a good thing. The pain is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. The avatar is not trying to torture you. It's doing it for your benefit. Because as you relax, again, as you relax, notice that conjunction, as, you can append anything to that. Any kind of a command, any kind of a visualization, any kind of an instruction. As you relax, so now we've linked it back to the original one, as you begin to relax, and now again, as you relax, and we can separate the two, so it becomes an embedded command, you can begin to discover that each time you relax, a muscle in an arm, a leg, your face. So now the avatar is now processing that, feeling things in the arm, feeling things in the face, feeling things in the leg. You can keep going on, your left shoulder, whatever. If you need to have them feel more things, you can just do that. Or even a foot or a finger. So, big things, small things, that you can drift down more and more deeply. Now, this kind of a construction appears a lot, more and more, because it implies that there's going to be some kind of movement, but it doesn't restrict it. So any kind of a movement is a success and will be treated as a success by the avatar when any kind of movement is felt. So success is built in. Yeah?
Was it it says a muscle in the arm or a leg or a face or foot do what?
Now, you can begin to discover that each time you relax a muscle in an arm,
Yeah.
okay, or a leg, or a
Oh,
face.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, but you don't even have to relax a muscle in the face. All you have to do is become aware of the face. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Again, a complex kind of a construction there that is just directing attention all around the body, okay, with the eyes closed, okay, to initiate the trance state and also to build rapport. Because as you're speaking to the person and they're responding to all of this, they're getting more comfortable with this process. And they're having success right from the very beginning. With your eyes closed, and then they close their eyes, that's a success. And then as you lead them through this further and further, more and more successes as they are able to respond to each of these requests in an appropriate way, and then they're reinforced, not only by the fact that they're doing it, but also by simple phrases like, that's fine. So success is built in at every step of the process. And regardless of what they're doing, it's still fine. Okay? Drift down more and more deeply than before. Now that's kind of an open-ended thing. If they haven't ever been in a trance, what does that mean? Well, they'll have to try to figure out what that means. How far down have I been? And now I'm going to go down further than whatever that was. Okay, so again, it allows them to decide whatever trance test they want to go through. And the way that they're going to get there. Into that sensation. So now, remember earlier up there, it's difficult not to become aware of it, so go right ahead, become aware of it. Then begin to relax, begin to move your attention around the body, and then, now that you've moved it around the body a bit and you know you can direct it, now direct it down through that sensation. Okay, which is kind of a, I mean, if you analyze it, it doesn't make any sense really, because you can't really go through a sensation. But the motion is there to drift down, to drop down, because we've discovered over time that metaphors of dropping down and depth and things like that initiate the trance state and control trance depth. Okay, that is distance of the thinking substance from the avatar itself. The further down, the further the distance. In a more relaxed and comfortable way. So you can, more relaxed and comfortable, again, this sort of a comparative kind of a thing. And we don't specify how comparatively more it is. We let them decide how to do that. All right, so now we've moved them around, they've closed their eyes, they're having these visualizations, they're feeling their body from different perspectives, they're aware of the sensation of pain or discomfort, and now they're learning control over how to actually penetrate through it and drop down in a relaxed way, past it, through it. Okay? So this is control. This is total control over consciousness and attention, which is what we're after here. We need to be able to dissociate and move away and allow the avatar to take care of this stuff for us. Because there really is no need to make the effort it takes to try to stay away from that That's kind of a complex construct as well. There really is no need to make the effort it takes to try to stay away from that feeling. So don't try to stay away from the feeling, just go through it, just drop down through it. Don't try to ignore it, don't try to just sort of endure it. Actually drift down through it. And we'll reinforce that as we move through. Or try to fight that feeling. Remember earlier we talked about fighting the mind, so now we've linked that up with fighting the feeling. So these are all repetitive kinds of phrases that link back to previous instruction sets. Okay, or try to fight that feeling, which almost seems, okay, to guide and direct it. To guide and direct awareness down to it. Okay, so we're reinforcing the concept of down. And we've got this interesting construct. Almost seems. I mean, we're not even being very forceful at all here. It almost seems to do that. Even though that will be the instruction. Allow these feelings to guide and direct consciousness down to it, toward it, more and more into it. Okay? This is a homonym. You'll see this a lot in Ericksonian techniques. Into it is a homonym with into it, as in intuition. Okay, so you'll see a lot of these word plays. And as you drift toward it, toward that center of that feeling. So now that you're sort of trying to define the center of that feeling, whatever that means, everything else can be allowed to relax. So now you're focused on that sensation of pain and discomfort, and everything else can be allowed to relax. You relaxed it deliberately earlier, you know, a muscle in an arm, a leg, hand, face, whatever. Now you're just going to let everything relax as you continue to focus your consciousness, your attention, on that feeling of discomfort. Okay? Everything else can be allowed to relax more and more. Notice the repetition of the command, the embedded command. Relax, relax, more and more. As you begin to discover, again, it's this process of beginning that it really is okay to let go in that way. Notice the rhyme. Why the rhyming patterns? Why the wordplay? Not only because it creates complex imagery, but also because it reminds us of what? When did we use rhymes a lot?
When we were kids.
Yes, exactly, when we were children. So now what this is, that is an embedded command for age regression. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. It really is okay to let go in that way. And that will automatically trigger an age regression. And what that does for the hypnotist is establish a relationship of an adult to a child, okay, who is in pain. When we were in pain, we ran to our mothers and they made it better. Okay, so now we are capitalizing on that relationship and allowing ourselves to take on the role of that comforting adult and allowing that, and we allow ourselves, if we're going into trance, to age regress back to that point of where we were comforted by the adult. And so that helps to amplify the process as we're going through this. Okay? Very simple. To allow yourself to relax every other part of your body, and again, to drift down towards the very tiniest center. Now, it's not just the center, it's the very tiniest center. So we're narrowing and restricting consciousness and awareness and focus and concentration down to the tiniest center we can of that pain. And as we do that, what happens to the pain itself?
It goes away.
Exactly. Everything else becomes blurry, and we're just focused on that very tiny center. And we are age regressed, and we're in the presence of a comforting adult. And we've learned how to relax, and we've learned how to move our consciousness around. All in the space of about 30 seconds, basically, a minute maybe. The very small middle of it, the source of it, and then to drift right down through that center into a place beneath it. So we're gonna focus our attention and then just drop right down through it. Okay, of quietness and calm awareness. Down through that feeling and out the other side, into a space of relaxed letting go. So now we've got letting go, relaxation, drifting down, other side, you know, and remember, we're talking to an age-regressed person who has very, very carefully and systematically narrowed down the focus of their attention. Just by doing that, by closing their eyes, by narrowing their concentration, they have now reduced most of the pain, and now they're going to drop right through and out the other side. Okay, where the mind can drift, where the thinking substance that we are can drift away. Okay? And now we've got an image. We're now talking to an age-regressed person, a child, about images of waves. Okay? Notice the shift. And it's just a semantic shift. Where the mind can drift the way waves drift. And notice the rhyme, way waves drift. Again, reinforcing that, the age regression. From one place to another. One place to another. This motion again. Drifting down, drifting through one place to another. Waves, rhythmic kinds of behaviors. Okay? And that body relaxes. Notice that body. Not your body. That body. Because now we're talking to an age-regressed person whose attention is narrowed and the mind has drifted off, and they're now dissociated. It's not your body, it's that body, the one over there. The one you left behind as you moved into this space of calm, relaxed, letting go. Okay, so now we've got dissociation going on here. And the mind becomes smoother and smoother. So now the waves are becoming smoother and smoother, calmer and calmer. Able to absorb events. Events is undefined. Even those events. Okay? Obviously referring to the pain. But still very undefined so that the person can define what we're talking about. The age-regressed, dissociated person can define what we're talking about. Okay? Even those events, able to absorb events, even those events, easily and comfortably. So we've reinforced the concept of comfort several times. We've reinforced the concept of relaxation several times, of drifting several times. And now we are dealing with someone who, even if they are not in a deep somnambulistic kind of a trance, where we could perform surgery on them, they are in an altered state where things are changing and they're visualizing waves or however they process that instruction, and they're age regressed. And this happens automatically. Even if the conscious person, even if the person that they are doesn't recognize all of the stuff that's going on, the avatar does, and it's responding to that. Okay, we've got not only clinical verification of that, but experimental verification of that. Even if they don't think they're hypnotized, they are. The avatar is actually processing all of the stuff at a very deep level. Okay? Questions so far? To become absorbed in thoughts and images. Notice we're now going back to the concept of absorption. We repeated that word. So it's able to absorb all of these painful and uncomfortable things, and now we're becoming absorbed in thoughts and images as the mind reflects the clear wonder of a child. Now it's a direct statement that you're age regressed. Earlier it was sort of an embedded command. Now it's a direct statement to regress further. Okay, let me change the tape and then we'll continue. And we'll be done with this in just a second and then we'll practice.